cursed. Every time we get invited up to a panel, it turns out it's actually a fireside and no one's giving us questions.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago at Texas in Bangkok, we had the same issue. We kind of had to wing it, but no, it's good to be here. I appreciate everyone on day 3 of KBW taking some time to listen to Mark and myself. We could start with some intros if you want. Yeah.
Sure. Mark here, co-founder at Aethir. We do distributed GPU infrastructure for gaming and AI companies. I think most people know us for what we build in the AI space. We have a whole bunch of enterprise-grade infrastructure powering big AI projects, a huge bunch of H100s, some of the highest performant GPUs in the world. We have 3,000, onboarding another 1,000, getting to 4,000 by the end of the year. That's really cool on the AI side, and I think speaks to a very powerful narrative in the space. But we're also kind of a big bunch of gamers, right? The reason we started Aethir was because we were building in the distributed cloud space, trying to increase the scalability of cloud gaming networks, right? We had Google Stadia. They shut down because they couldn't scale their technology outside of just the US and kind of Western Europe. You have GeForce Now with NVIDIA that still charges for their service. It's a really interesting space, as I think the biggest barrier in gaming at the moment is hardware, right? How do you get the 2.8 billion gamers out there gaming on low-end devices, and how do you get them access to high-end gaming content and give, obviously, the biggest gaming publishers in the world access to them? Really cool problem, big latency challenge, and something that I think distributed networks have a cool advantage for, so happy to share more.
Yeah, well said. And I just noticed the custom Aethir Nikes. I think those are pretty fresh. I'm going to need to get me a pair of those, being a partner of Aethir. Yeah, I think given the topic, Aethir and CARV are two great companies to be had up here. A little bit on me. I'm Paul, leading business at CARV. We are building the largest decentralized identity data layer for gaming and AI. What does that all mean? Mark mentions hardware is a big issue in gaming. I think also user acquisition is another big issue in gaming. I think it's something like 75% of game studios struggle to accurately identify their ideal gamer, and CARV's directly tackling that problem, amongst others. How we're doing that, we've got over 6 million users in our ecosystem in the past 2 years, many of whom have aggregated all of their identities in one place. They're on-chain, they're off-chain, like their socials, etc., but most importantly, their Web2 gaming profiles, Steam, Epic, Xbox. And what that allows us to do is really paint the picture for different games looking to target their ideal gamer, right? So imagine we're working with a Shrapnel, and they were like, let's find players who play FPS games, but they're from Thailand, they spend like this on the blockchain, whatever it may be. CARV can identify those users, and we can activate them. So I think both CARV and Aethir are putting together solutions that are really going to fuel or power the next gen of gaming and AI. I can touch a little bit on AI if you want, really briefly, how CARV's doing that. Yeah, I guess a little bit more on CARV, right? So we have all of that user data. A lot of AI companies are actually trying to work with CARV to use our user data to train different models. I think the big caveat with CARV is we are at the same time empowering users with data sovereignty. So I think right now, how it's set up, there's only several or a few Web2 companies that really control the flow of data, right? Who sees it, who accesses it, but most importantly, who's monetizing from it. So with CARV, you're actually monetizing and sharing in that revenue generation. So for example, Mark, let's say OpenAI and CARV are working together. They're using some of our user data. If you're one of those users, you're actually going to share in the revenue or the fee that OpenAI paid to CARV or whatever it may be, the revenue generated, you're sharing in that. So what I'm really focused on in this pre-TGE environment for CARV and post-TGE world is how do I marry that message that CARV is championing data sovereignty, we're protecting you, the little guy versus these big companies. How do I marry that to holding the CARV token and building like a cult-like mentality? So that's a little bit about what we're doing on AI. Curious about what Aethir is doing on the AI front.
Yeah, I mean the challenge in the broader AI sector is access, right? Access to resources, whether they're on the compute side, access to data, right? I think the world has been mined of essentially all of its easily accessible data. And how do we get access to more? Incentivizing people to provide their data and giving them trust that they can do so in a way that they'll be kind of rewarded for it, or at least told when it's used is a pretty cool way. Our focus is definitely on the compute side of things, right? So we make it more accessible for builders to access high performance GPU compute. And the way we do that is by creating effectively an infrastructure layer that allows owners of GPU compute to contribute their compute back to the marketplace by simply linking up to our integration infrastructure. It's effectively like Airbnb for GPUs at an enterprise level, right? If you're an enterprise that's purchased a whole bunch of compute, if you don't have the internal infrastructure to on-sell that compute, then effectively if you're not using it, or if you have missed forecast, or if you have a production delay, then that is the most expensive compute of all time, burning a hole in your pocket. And it's a pretty big hole that's being burned. And effectively, if you look at the amount of compute that's out there, the compute that goes to people that aren't AWS, the compute that goes to people that don't have the ability to resurface the internally profiled compute to the market again, that's effectively lost, right? There's no way for any other company to access it. So by making it really, really easy for them to reconnect their compute to the global marketplace, we've kind of re-added new net supply back into the ecosystem.
What were you saying the other night at dinner? I think it was Sam Altman. Who said compute is everything? You were saying at the Notes dinner the other day?
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe it was you. I don't know.
I think it might have been. I also say that Elon Musk said that GPUs were harder to buy than drugs.
Okay,
right?
I like that one.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. But yeah, it's a crazy world out there, and I think the power that's going to accrue to these companies that are building these high-performant LLMs, right, is pretty insane. We need to create scenarios where we can have competition, right? Where we can have teams that are not those big tech companies building interesting products, so that we don't just have every single piece of the industry accruing to these big giants that are maybe not the best people to have that amount of power.
Yeah, well said. I want to bring it back to the topic at hand and specifically ask you something about gaming. Feel free to kick it back to me as we kind of freestyle our way through this. Aethir is obviously working with a lot of game partners right now. What's your current take on the GameFi market? Who are the players? Who's succeeding really well? Who from last cycle do you really see still around?
Yeah, I mean, it sucked to hear the news about Shrapnel, right? That was a really cool project. I thought a lot of people felt had mainstream appeal, right? Big games like that do take time. Development cycles on a title like that are 3 years minimum. So to kind of see that struggle and maybe implode is a bit of a bummer. I think there are definitely some really cool projects. The narrative at the moment seems to be TON related, right? Telegram related. And I think it's a really interesting narrative because it just speaks to the fact that we do have such a UX problem in crypto, right? And as soon as we can kind of access users in a way that kind of bypasses that user experience challenge, we seem to get massive inflows.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing about the TON and the Telegram, not fad, but trend maybe I could say, is that you could just pop open your Telegram app and click a bot button, right, a link or whatever, and then you're playing the game. I think Telegram and then TON as well are big means of distribution for a lot of these game studios, and I think you've seen these people that have struggled the past few years or are just in the process of developing their games, not necessarily pivot, but pivot and build a Telegram game at the same time because it's a great user acquisition play. We talk about powering the next gen of gaming. I think TON has a big place in that picture as well. What's your favorite game right now?
Man, I think there's a couple of cool games out there. I think I saw recently, I can't remember the name, but they're building actually a first-person shooter in TON, right? On HTML browser and a bot and Telegram. I mean, there's some really innovative games being produced that are well beyond the kind of hamster combat ecosystem. It's going to be interesting. I mean, Hamster Combat, had roughly 300 million users.
Yeah, I think they're still kind of printing a little bit, right? Yeah.
60 million in their Telegram channel, and I think their listing is end of this month, like 27th of September, I think is the prediction. But I don't know how you keep a community like that happy, right? Because their expectation is just a massive dump of tokens. Right, they're tapping to get rich, and they want to get rich immediately. Yeah. And I think it's almost an impossible circumstance, right? Keeping that type of community happy, and then as a result, keeping your token price anywhere near stable. Yeah,
you bring up a good point about farming. Managing expectations is super important. It's something I'm working on right now, right, as we approach that day ourselves. But I want to ask you, and feel free to kick it back to me again. How much do you think the Web3 gaming space is influenced by incentives, right? Incentivization. A lot of the so-called gamers may just be token farmers, right? That are coming around to do these play to airdrops. So I guess my question is, what's your take on P2A, and how many true gamers are actually in this niche right now?
Yeah, I mean, play to earn was a dirty word pretty quickly when Axie started to go down, and we had the whole narrative that games needed to be fun, right? People forget that fun games take time to build, right? And when studios fail and new builders come in, those builders have to go through that same process, right? I think airdrops in general are, I think like Smokey and the guys were speaking a little bit about how to manage incentives. I think they're a suboptimal way. They're either very, very expensive from a user perspective, or they just generate a whole bunch of FUD for your project. I mean, I was seeing posts about Grass, project I think is pretty cool. You know, they had a app that you download and would hold on your computer, and they had it on people's computer for 10 months, and then the average airdrop value was like $3.27. I mean, it's tough to keep your community happy when expectations do just go up and up. Yeah, it's interesting. I'd love to know what your take is on this, because you have such a big number of kind of community members within your network.
Yeah, we had a lot of people farm the CARV token. I think we had 28 million unique active wallets last month, which makes us the #1 per Radium. Number 2 was, or per DApp radar. Number 2 was Radium. So it's been quite an amazing couple months at CARV, but that comes with managing big expectations, right? I want to. My take on P2A. I mean, I think it could really make or break your project. You mentioned the grass thing. Those users are now going to feel betrayed by the project. And really, I think it's a double-edged sword. These users do spend a lot of time and gas fees, right, money, to farm these projects. But at the same time, like, are they really doing that much to warrant getting rich from the project, right? I think about 10 months ago in the Solana ecosystem, there were a lot of interesting projects that were farmed, and a lot of people made a lot of money. Or I think very few people made a lot of money, and that kind of started this big meta. You saw these threads like, oh, how I farmed X project and made 10 Gs. Now you have all these big expectations like, oh, I can farm CARV and make 10 Gs. Well, we have millions of people farm, you know, our project. Not everyone's going to be making 10 grand, right? So I've been very, not stressed, but focused on managing my community's expectations. And I don't know if it's working out. We'll see how it goes. I want to talk quickly on how many people are farmers versus how many people are gamers, right? So I mentioned we've grown to about 6 million registered accounts on CARV Play. This is our B2C platform. And we know that about 20% of these users are real gamers. We know that because of the aggregated credentials that they've brought to their CARV account. We can see their Steam data and how far back their gaming history goes. These are people I'm worried about or focused on long term. I want them to be around after the token drop. Yeah, I want them to take their drop, but I think they're going to be ones that are more likely to hold the CARV that they get and are here with us long term. I think that 20%, which is still a pretty sizable number if you consider 6 million registered accounts, that 20% of users is something I want to foster and work on after the token drops, because I know, you know, CARV TG, there's going to be those that come and get their bag, and you know what, they deserve that too. I can't make them stay. I just got to make the project as great as it can be so they're incentivized to hold, yeah.
Yeah, when we did our airdrop, we tried our very best to do a similar thing. Honestly, we tried to look at how we could link Steam data with on-chain accounts within our network to kind of use gaming history as a metric for reward within the ecosystem. It just ended up being a little bit too hard to do at the time.
Yeah, I think I kind of alluded to it earlier, tying the message of data sovereignty to owning the CARV token. It's something I really have learned from being in the Solana trenches and understanding meme coins, this cult-like mentality. It's very different to do around like a coin like CARV, right? That's not necessarily funny. There's no meme to it, etc. But I think, you know, the interesting about meme coins and why I'm bullish on, you know, some of them is a lot of these people don't, you know, really care about the price. They believe in the long-term vision. I'm not going to shill a ticker up here, but like I think there's some communities that have really gone past the meme kind of, you know, narrative and become something bigger than the meme itself. So I'm trying to take that same community-like, cult-like mentality and apply it to CARV. Not a little bit off topic. We're talking about, you know, the ticker itself here, but I think gaming tokens need to one, develop fun games. I think that's key, something we haven't had in the past, you know, few years. And then two, really manage community expectations and have a fun P2A, but then also focus, you know, long-term community health, not tied to incentivization.
Yeah, it's hard. I think that there's still not a massive use case for having a token for a game all the time.
Yeah.
I think that NFTs have a natural use case, but they have to be, not treated like NFTs. They need to be in-game assets.
No, I mean, gaming is really tough right now, right? We had Illuvium launch in July, which has been a project that had hundreds of millions behind it, right? 3 years in development, not do too well. I think it looks pretty good. I know that team, that I'm rooting for them, but the launch didn't go quite that well. I think that's kind of a wake-up call for a lot of developers to really, dig deep and focus on, their game development. Not that Illuvium didn't, but it's just a reminder that it's really, really, really hard. I think we talked about it a little bit in Bangkok. Illuvium in development for 3 years, but we haven't even had GTA 6 in the past 10, right? It's really, really hard to build a video game. And so I think teams need to, man, it's so tough. You got to balance the Web3 community with Web2 game development. It's really, like you said, there's no proven method yet. And I'm hoping teams like us, can help them scale and do well. They can go focus on building a good game.
100%. And I mean, the other interesting things, like Illuvium is a cool game, but
it's cool.
The barrier to entry to play that game is quite high.
Yeah, I saw. So I haven't played it myself. Just too busy with stuff. And the little time I do get to play video games, I play a little bit of Elden Ring and NCAA 25 now that college football's back. But I did watch a lot of the gameplay, and it's almost pay to play. There's some content locked behind a wall. You mentioned the friction. It's not that easy to get your ETH in there either, especially if you're a US customer. So Web3 still has the classic onboarding problem. But there's some really cool teams that are fixing the onboarding problem as well. Yeah.
I mean, there is a really cool narrative about good games with people being able to, almost create employment within games, right? I mean, you had World of Warcraft farmers mining gold, right? You have ecosystems where parts of the world can really benefit from assets that have value in games. But if you build an Unreal Engine 5 game that requires a high-end GPU to play, it doesn't matter how good the game is, you're not going to get the people that are economically motivated to kind of mine those valuable assets in game.
Yeah, that's another good point about Illuvium. I heard like the hardware, you need like a RTX 4080 or whatever the latest graphics card is, and still like you struggle to run. And that's why, again, kind of going off on what we talked about in Bangkok, I'm really bullish on mobile titles because everyone in Asia has a mobile phone. So I think mobile games are really poised for success initially. And I think just Asia will lead the way, right? Did I just say that? I don't know. I'm tired, but it's been a long week. But mobile I think is going to be, when we talk about powering the next generation of gaming, I think it's mobile first, yeah.
100%. 3.3 billion gamers out there. Vast majority are mobile. Vast majority are in developing regions. And unlocking their screens is kind of the biggest opportunity still out there in gaming.
I think also genre-wise, like hyper-casual stuff. Maybe this is why Telegram's so hot, like these tapper games. I could be working on something, I could be just on the go, and I could just be gaming at the same time. Attention spans are so shot right now. We can blame TikTok, we can blame whatever we want, but like people don't have time to grind a World of Warcraft like they used to, or an Illuvium for that matter. So I think games that are not necessarily on Telegram, but are mobile focused, are really going to thrive. I've lived in Asia for like the past 2 years now, being a white guy from America. I've had that great experience, and everywhere you go, especially in like Shanghai, everyone's playing on their mobile phones. So I think the Web3 game is really going to crack mass adoption. Will be something mobile focused, multiplayer, mobile focused game. Maybe like TFT is very hot in Asia, so something like that.
Yeah, 100%. And something that China does really well as well, and this is actually where Aethir got its kind of early inspiration. I lived in Beijing for 7-8 years, and was working on cloud infrastructure work there, particularly on mobile cloud gaming, right? So even though games can be produced for mobile, you can still have mobile phones that aren't capable of playing newer games, right? PUBG, League of Legends, these are games, Honor of Kings, right? These are games that are not necessarily available for play on every phone. And as a result of that, China has pumped out the largest mobile cloud gaming network in the world, such that effectively any game can go through those networks and access the 1 billion plus users out there in China. Yeah,
we talk about how Aethir and CARV are powering the next gen of gaming. I saw the Aethir use case live. I was out with Kaiser in Tokyo last week. We were out at a bar. He pulls out his phone. He's like, "Bro, you want to play Witcher 3?" I was like, "What the F?" Like, I mean, no, not right now, but that's really cool. You can do that on the go on your phone, and it was powered by Aethir. So quick show for you. I think that was really cool and fits really into the topic. That's That's the future. Yeah, you're taking a game that's PC and console that looks really good, and it still looks really good on a mobile phone. That's really cool.
Yeah, 100%. The craziest thing, the easiest way to understand the tech is that everyone knows that any phone, any device, they can access YouTube, right? You don't need a good device or a high-powered device to access YouTube. And cloud gaming and the tech that powers Aethir is effectively turning a game into a dynamic video feed, an interactive video feed. You're making a YouTube video that you can interact with. And it means that literally any device anywhere can play any game, whether it's a console game being accessed through your mobile phone or a PC game being accessed through your mobile phone. It's just like that phone is watching a YouTube video that you can interact with.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. I guess, with 5 minutes left, do you have any closing remarks? Maybe we open it up to the audience, the few that are hanging out listening to us, Riff and Raf. What do you think about the next 12 months in gaming? And then maybe I can share a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I think gaming is a narrative that should see some upside over the next kind of 6 months. I'm really positive that it will. I think there are some cool projects building. I think there's definitely going to be this really strong narrative within the Telegram ecosystem that will give some wind to games that maybe just optimize their Telegram experience as top of funnel to pull them into a more interesting game experience somewhere else. But I think that user acquisition for games through Telegram is going to be pretty interesting.
Definitely agree. I think also you mentioned some pretty cool games coming. Those are the games that received like a lot of funding the last few years. Some of my favorites are actually all mobile. Fableborn looked really good with their test. Infinigods with King of Destiny looks really good as well. And then I'm blanking on another mobile title I like, but I'm really bullish on mobile. Quickly on AI too. I think AI is really going to supercharge this gaming cycle, mostly because of what developers can do with the tool. When you talk about the democratization of creativity, which is something Mike from Today the Game coined. I really like it. It basically refers to how AI is going to bridge the gap between what AAA can do and what indie studios can do. So I think a lot of these Web3 teams that don't necessarily have the big war chest that maybe a Rockstar has are going to be able to ship pretty cool games because of generative AI, cost cutting, shortcutting, Git development, generative assets, all of that cool stuff I think are coming. And then lastly, what I was going to say about gaming as well. Damn, I think I lost it. But I'm just very excited about gaming and AI, and I think AI opens up like Pandora's box when it comes to gaming. A lot of unique experiences with it's been a long day. Generative AI and like new narratives and AI NPCs. Sorry, that's what I was getting at a little bit too. Every user will be able to have like their own unique experience in a game. So I think, man, it's going to be a really interesting 12 months, and I think you and I and our teams are both really poised to participate in the gaming wave and supercharge a lot of those teams. A lot of those teams we're already working with.
100%. Super exciting.
Yeah, that's all I really have. We got 2 minutes. If anyone wants to ask a question, I'm happy to answer or chime, but I'm also happy to walk off.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Mark and Paul.